At 7-2, it would seem that everything is going right for the Detroit Lions. However, though, there remains to be one major problem that the Lions must address and fix before they become real contenders, and that's defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy,
But I got a plan, I swear to you.
who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach,
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host David T. Pike, and we're diving in right now. As always, to those that are returning to the show, I just want to say thank you all for coming back. Thank you all for your view, your support, your patronage. Thank you all for everything that you do. And to those that are newcomers to the show, I just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content, and with that, hopefully I gain your subscription if I've deserved it and earned it. And with that having been said, I just want to say to everybody, God bless. I hope you enjoy the show, and let's dive into the content. So here's the thing, folks. If you think about it with me, for as long as I've done my show, whether it was the old show with DLF, whether it's this current show with MCM, I have never once shied away from telling the truth. No matter how painful it is, no matter how much I may not agree with it, no matter how much it really is just something I don't care for. The point of the matter is I have always stuck to the truth regardless of the situation. Sometimes I agree with it, sometimes I don't. Well, today's episode, you're going to be getting the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Because here's the thing, folks. We have to understand the situation for what it is with the Detroit Lions. Yes, the Lions just won a game against the Chargers. They're 7-2. They just came out of their bye winning. It seems like they're set up for a nice long streak run going into the playoffs. It seems like everything's going right for them. But we have to be honest. We cannot just bury our heads in the sand like ostriches and just say, well, everything's great, grand, and glorious. We don't have any problems. I'm sorry. That is not the truth. It could not be further from the truth. Yes, the Lions won against the Chargers. We won 41-38. We are 7-2. But we have to take a look at what this game against the Chargers actually truly means for us Lions fans. Let's kind of back up here a moment before we get in a little bit further. The Chargers are a team that I said in my previous episode, and I'll put that episode back up at the top. This was a game I already expected was going to be close. I kind of already had a suspicion it was going to be close, because if you take a look at the Lions if you take a look at the Chargers' previous 4 losses prior to this one that they just had against us, 3 of those 4 losses that they had were by 3 points or less. So I was like, okay, this is a team that's going to keep this game, at least in my mind, close. However, though, there's a reason why I'm saying what I'm saying in this episode today. And the reason why is because this game was once again a perfect case study, a perfect piece of evidence, if you will, as to why I think Aaron Glenn is simply never going to get this defense over the hump. Now, why am I saying what I'm saying, over the hump? And the reason I'm saying it is for a very, very specific reason. Here's the reason why. There are detractors out there. There's one very specific who knows exactly who I'm referring to, who has come after me, not necessarily in the sense of being rude or a sense of throwing threats or anything else, but he has come after me in return for all the things I've said about Aaron Glenn, because either I'm not being very specific, or because he thinks that I'm not giving Aaron Glenn a chance, or because I'm overlooking things. But let's be entirely fair and honest here. The reason I'm saying that Glenn will not get this defense over the hump is because throughout the first 9 games that we've played this year, there is an extreme and I mean this, an extreme dichotomy, extreme divide between how Aaron Glenn, how his scheme, how his defense reacts to both good and bad teams, and likewise good and bad quarterbacks. And this is why I'm being very, very specific with today's episode, because I'm going to present to you the whole truth and nothing but the truth to get you to understand that Aaron Glenn, when it comes time for playoffs, we're screwed. We are absolutely 100% screwed. And here's what I mean by that. We will probably win one playoff game this year. That's about as far as I'm willing to go. We'll get into the wild card. We'll probably play against a low seed team. We'll probably beat that team because we'll be at home. But once the divisional round starts, I don't see us going very far. In fact, I think we won't get past the division round. And here is the reason why. Here's where I'm going to start my comparative analysis, my statistical analysis, my logic, and my reasoning. Let's understand something here, folks. When you consider some of the evidence that I have to present, this is going to really blow your socks off as far as how crazy this is. Let's consider this. If you take a look at the 3 games that the defense on its own, and I have to be very, very specific about that, because again, people like to be, how should I say, politically correct about this whole thing. But in the 3 games that the defense on its own, the defense itself giving up points, has surrendered 30 points or more, there are 3 games that's happened. That's against the Seahawks, that's against the Ravens, and that's against the Chargers. They gave up 30 points against the Seahawks, they gave up 38 points against the Ravens, and they gave up 38 points yesterday against the Chargers. Now, here's the thing. In those 3 games, we are 1-2, so we have a losing record. That's the first point I want to point out there. But furthermore, when you start taking into account this as well, I just said the defense had given up 30, 38, and 38 in those 3 games. That's 106 points over 3 games. Now I said, okay, here, let's take a look at the games that the Lions have played against on defense when they have not surrendered 30 points or more on defense. And again, I made very specifically sure that it was only when the defense was the reason why those points were surrendered. So I took off offensive turnover points. If you consider that, the Lions' defense in those other 6 games that I want to talk about there, sorry, I had a scratch, have surrendered 83 points in those other 6 games. Now, wait a minute here. 3 is half of 6, right? So, in double the amount of games to those other 3, we've only surrendered 33 points, right? Sorry, we've only surrendered 83 points, right? But yet in those 3 games that I was just talking about, we've surrendered 106 points. That is a difference of 23 points when we've had double the amount of games, but we've had 23 less points, which if you think about it, that's 4 scoring drives almost right there, because that's 3 touchdowns and almost a field goal. That's rather embarrassing. That tells me that when we go up against really good teams like the Seahawks, the Ravens, the Chargers, we cannot stop them from scoring. And the evidence is in the proof of pudding, as I just presented there. In double the games, we have almost 3 scoring drives less in total points versus those 3 games alone. That's rather interesting. That's rather enlightening, wouldn't you say? But again, we're not done. We are just getting started here. Let's furthermore go into this. Because again, I'm talking about top teams. I'm talking about top quarterbacks, right? Well, let's talk about the quarterbacks and how they have done individually against the Detroit Lions. The top quarterbacks versus the mid-tier quarterbacks, or the really bad quarterbacks. If you take a look at the 4 really good quarterbacks that the Lions have played against this year, Mahomes, Geno Smith, Justin Herbert, and Lamar Jackson, this is the total in terms of stats that they have put up against us. 101 completions to 147 attempts, which comes out to 68.7 completion percentage rate, 1,234 yards, 11 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, with an average, which means you add up all the points and then you divide it by the amount of total data entries for QBR, is 84.8. That's an average. But the passer rating, all put together, 113.6. I don't need to tell anybody this, but that is very, very impressive as far as statistical output for quarterbacks, but it's very embarrassing. It's humiliating for a defense. That pretty much means that whenever we have gone up against a top-tier quarterback, we cannot stop them for anything. Think about it. 11 touchdowns to two interceptions. And those 2 interceptions were in this previous game we just had against the Chargers and week 1 against freaking Patrick Mahomes. That means when we play top-tier quarterbacks, we are not getting turnovers off of them very often, and it means they are lighting us up like a Christmas tree. But wait a minute. Here's where I was talking about that difference, that dichotomy, if you will, between how the two operate. That was the really good quarterbacks, right? Now take a look at the really bad quarterbacks, which is Desmond Ridder, Jordan Love, Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield, and Bryce Young. This is what they have done against our defense when we've played them. 98 completions to 173 attempts for a 56.6 completion rate, 1,026 yards, 4 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, a QBR average of 19.3, and a passer rating of 67.3. The difference is downright staggering. It's scary. It's unbelievable. It pretty much means this. When we play really good quarterbacks, our ass is getting spanked. But when we play mid to bad quarterbacks, we're the ones that's spanking their ass. But again, that's just getting kind of into this. We're, again, going to go further and further into this because, again, I am presenting every bit, every piece, every bit of evidence I can because I am tired of the detractors trying to tell me that I've not given Aaron Glenn a fair shot, that I've not been considerate of everything. I give everything I possibly can when I sit down to give an episode because I consider every piece of information that is available. And that is exactly what I'm doing in today's episode. Because again, let's consider this again. You talk about when our defense has gone against the really good teams, the really good quarterbacks. We're 2-2 in those games. Because again, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Chargers, and the Seahawks. But think about this. In those 4 games, on average, the Lions defense has surrendered almost 305 passing yards, 105 rushing yards, almost 32 points on average, and almost allowed opposing offenses to convert at a 45% rate. That's against good teams and good quarterbacks. But again, when you flip it on the reverse side of things and you go to the mid or bad teams and quarterbacks, this is what you get. On average, we're giving up almost 175 passing yards, 59 to 60 rushing yards, only about 13 points, and only about 27% of the time are we allowing opposing offenses to convert against us on third down when it's a mid-tier to bad-tier team or quarterback. So again, just taking a look at the difference there, that is a difference of 131 passing yards, almost 50 rushing yards, almost 20 points, and almost 20% on third down. Again, the difference between the two is absolutely mind-blowing. It's staggering. And again, I started thinking to myself, I was like, we're 2-2 against those good teams, right? How did we win those 2 games? Well, let's go back to the Chiefs game. The reason, I'm going to be honest, the reason we won the Chiefs game was because Travis Kelce wasn't playing. Then the simple, short, and truth of it. No matter how much you want to slice it, if Travis Kelce plays that game, we're probably not winning. And then you think about this game against the Chargers. The defense virtually could not do anything to stop, halter, pretty much do anything to get Justin Herbert off of his game. Almost nothing. The reason we won this game against the Chargers, our offense showed up and played. Our offense showed up and played. Pure, plain, and simple. That's it. That's the truth. But think about this again. The further we go down this little rabbit hole, let's consider further how bad, how atrocious this defensive scheme was against the Chargers. Like I said, Justin Herbert had himself a day. And when I mean a day, he had himself a day yesterday. 27 completions of 40 attempts with 323 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, an 83.6 QBR rating, and a 114.9 passer rating. Those numbers in and of themselves shouldn't surprise anyone. Justin Herbert's a pretty damn good quarterback. But here's where it gets really kind of embarrassing. Zero. I say again, 0 sacks. This has been a problem that has been rearing its ugly head more and more as the weeks have gone by. When we play against really bad teams, we can get sacks in bundles. Because again, we got, 7 sacks against the freaking the Falcons, 5 sacks against the Packers, 5 sacks against the Raiders. We can get a lot of sacks against really bad teams. But against really good teams, we can't seem to get any sacks. We got no sacks against the Chargers. I don't think we got any sacks against the Chiefs. I don't think we got any sacks against the Ravens. I don't think we got any sacks against the Seahawks either. Now, ain't that a coincidence? But let's think about this even further. Go to Keenan Allen, the wide receiver that freaking Justin Herbert threw the most to. Again, Keenan Allen's a pretty damn good wide receiver. But think about the statistical production in comparison to how much Justin Herbert put up. He had 11 receptions for almost 200 receiving yards, 16 an average almost a catch, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Think about this, folks. Keenan Allen had more than half of Justin Herbert's total passing yards in terms of his receiving yards. And remember what I said in my previous episode before this whole game got started? I said the 2 guys that the freaking Lions absolutely at all costs had to stop if they wanted to try and win this game was Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen. That is exactly what I said. And yet, we could not stop them for anything. And again, let's take this even further. I'm going to refer you back to the game cast, the actual telecast with freaking Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. If you were actually watching that game, Tony Romo gave a rather good insight into something here as a quarterback. Remember, Justin Herbert has a broken middle finger on his non-dominant hand. Almost the entire time that game was going on, the Chargers ran out of the gun. And the reason why is because when you snap the ball under center, that is going to send a reverberation and a shock through the quarterback's hand. So since the quarterback has a broken finger, you would most likely not want to do that. But Tony Romo pointed out something rather intriguing here. If you're in the gun, you can only run the ball one of 2 ways, so it's very easy to predict. Whereas if you're under center, you can get a lot more tricky and a lot more fun with it and do a lot more other stuff. So, knowing that, the Lions defense knew that because they knew that they were most likely not going to run a lot under center. But yet, knowing that the run game was limited, we still gave up almost 350 yards passing to Justin Herbert and still allowed Keenan Allen to almost get 200 yards receiving. And oh, by the way, we had a bye week to prepare for all this. We had an extra week to study game film, find out their tendencies, and figure out what was the best way to stop them. And not only did we not stop them, we almost lost to them. Having an extra week of practice to watch game film and prepare and get ready for them, and we still almost lost. That is inexcusable. That is not even funny. That is unacceptable. And again, like I said earlier, the only reason the Lions won this game was because of the fact that the offense showed up to play. Because think about this, folks. It gets even worse when you consider the fact that at one point the Lions were up 17-3. We were up by 2 scores. And oh, by the way, at the halftime period, we had 192 rushing yards. We'd almost put up 200 yards rushing on the ground at halftime. But think about this, folks. We had to completely reverse engines on our offense and go from running the ball to passing the ball because our defense could not stop the Chargers' offense. It was so bad, we had to completely abandon the run because think about this. We had 192 yards at the half period, right? We finished the game with 200 yards even. That means we had 192 yards in the first 2 quarters and only 8 rushing yards in the last 2. That's horrible. That means that the offense had to completely reverse script because our defense could not stop the Chargers. So again, I'm going to say this right now. Thank God for Jared Goff, St. Brown, and Ben Johnson. Because think about this, folks. Jared Goff yesterday, 23 completions of 33 attempts, 333 passing yards, 10 an average a throw, 2 touchdowns, no picks, had a 76.4 QBR rating, and a 122.4 passer rating, completing almost 70% of his passes. And oh, by the way, had the game-winning drive because he got Riley Patterson and able to kick that 41-yard field goal. That was Jared Goff. And oh, by the way, Amon-Ra St. Brown, his primary receiver, 8 receptions for 156 yards receiving, almost 20 in average a catch with 1 receiving touchdown. Again, I pose this to you all once again. Ben Johnson has only been a coordinator for 1 full year, and yet this offense has consistently been a top 5 offense since day 1 under his tutelage. But yet in 3 years with Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator, this defense has no consistency. It cannot beat the top quarterbacks or teams on offense. And on top of that, we are still having the same problems that we had from last year and the year before that. So I'm going to just say this very plainly, very obvious, and very painfully. This defense, with Aaron Glenn at the helm, it will not win when it comes time for playoffs. We will win 1 game maybe at the wild card, but past that, there is nothing I can guarantee. There is nothing that I can speak with any sort of confidence, because here's the thing. If you cannot beat the good teams in the regular season, such as the Ravens, the Seahawks, and you can't really stack up well against the starting quarterbacks like the Justin Herberts, the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes, the freaking Geno Smiths. What makes you think you're going to do very well when you're in playoff time and you're playing the best of the best, and these guys have had a whole season to refine their skills, refine how they run their offenses? Think about that one. And oh, by the way, the defense got bailed out by the offense in one other category here. The offense had to go for it on 4th down 5 separate times, converting on 4 of them. I'm going to tell you this right now. That's going to become much harder the further we get into the later parts of the year and in the playoffs, because again, you're going to get the best of the best. We're not going to be able to keep doing that and win games. This defense is a liability. It is a severe weakness. It is an Achilles heel, and it's not because of the talent on the defense. It's because of Aaron Glenn's scheme. Because think about it. That zone defense that we've seen now, oh, that's right. We ran that zone defense against the Chiefs, which we barely won. We ran it against the Seahawks, which we lost. We ran it against the Ravens, which we lost. And we ran it against the Chargers, which we barely won. Again, another interesting coincidence, now don't you think? Again, I rest my case. You cannot, under any circumstances, say that Aaron Glenn is going to get us to the promised land if this is what we're going to continue to see whenever we play really good quarterbacks. Because I'm going to say this right now. It would not surprise me when we play against Dallas here in a couple of weeks if the Cowboys completely demolish us because we cannot stop a really good quarterback or really good wide receiver or any type of a good offense. But we shall see what happens. Who knows? Maybe Aaron Glenn wakes up. I don't know. But again, that's my evidence, that's my case. Say with it what you will, but them are the facts, that is the truth. But anyway, having presented my case and evidence, I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you liked what you saw, which I somehow believe some people are going to say they didn't, I just want to say make sure that you do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not had a chance to do so, I want to highly encourage y'all, please, to make sure you subscribe first and foremost, but also I want to make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure that you also get that bell notification icon turned on, so that way you guys also make sure you never miss any more content that I push out. And with that, I also want to encourage y'all, please, share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. And with that being said, I just want to again say thank you all for tuning into the show. Thank you all for your support, your patronage, your view. Hopefully I gained your subscription if I hadn't done so already. And with that being said, I just want to say God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.